I'm Sylvia, and I'm talking to Mike Hurst today. How are you today, Mike?
Yeah, Sylvia, I'm fine, thank you.
Good. So now you have got quite a full resume of, things you've done and people you've worked with. Can you just take us back a little bit and tell us about your career and how you first got your foot on the ladder of working in the media, film? Gosh, you've worked with everything. Just run us through your career.
Well, I don't know where you want to start. That's the trouble. It goes on a bit. I started as a kid on the stage in London when I was 4 years old. So I sort of began right there in a children's theatre group in London. Appeared in all the old variety halls and stuff like that. And, I mean, as a little kid, I must have just got the bug. And that's what I wanted to do. So, of course, I didn't know how, and I was so young it didn't matter really. But then what happened was rock and roll happened, and the first thing I did was get a guitar and tried to learn how to play and failed dismally. And then had another go about 2 years later when I was 13 by this time, and got into it and enjoyed it so much, and that sort of started me off in knowing what I wanted to do.
That got your foot on the ladder and you thought, this is it?
Well, yeah, you didn't know how to do it or where you were going to go or who was going to give you a break and everything. So, I tried so many auditions and so many everything. And for Oh Boy, which was the big TV show at that time, I auditioned for that. I did an audition for EMI in Studio 2, which became later the Beatles studio. And I didn't get any of those auditions until I did one for a fairly new group who were just on the ladder themselves called the Springfields. And I got the audition, and I joined Tom and Dusty, and that was it. It was all done.
Oh, is that where you got the first top 10 record for the British vocal group?
In America, the first UK hit in the United States for a British group, yeah.
That's a milestone, isn't it?
It is a bit, actually. It took everybody by surprise, not least us, because the track, Silver Threads and Golden Needles, didn't happen here. It wasn't a hit here. And suddenly, bang, out of the blue, it's top 20 in America. And that did it, you see, because it just broke us wide open. And we flew to Nashville, and it was just a moment of magic.
Well, so when was it you decided that you were going to do some producing? What made you make that step?
Money.
Oh, that's a good point.
Well, the group had broken up at Springfield at the end of 1963. And I formed another group in 64 with Jimmy Page and then Albert Lee. And we didn't last long because we didn't play the music people in England wanted to hear. We played, I guess, Nashville. And nobody wanted Nashville in 1964. So my wife said, you better make some money. And I said, I don't know how. She said, well, why don't you produce records? And I said, I don't know how to do that. Never done it. And she said, oh, rubbish. You've been in the studios a lot. And I said, yeah, but on the other side of the glass. She said, what is your record? What did he do, your record producer? And I said, what he did was read the Daily Telegraph during the session and then press a button and say, next. She said, well, you could do that. I said, yeah, I suppose I can.
Wow.
And that's what started me off.
Because that led you on to form your own company, didn't it? And you must
have... Yeah, first of all, I have to say, I believe in trying to do things the right way, whatever you do. So I made some records for Mickey Most production company, stuff he didn't want to do. And Andrew Oldham, who just started Immediate Records, stuff for him that he didn't want to do. But the point is, it taught me what I needed to know about the basics of producing records. And so I started my own company, yes, in end of 65.
Well, because you work with The Move, Manfred Mann, Spencer Davis, and you've got some...
Yeah, the first person I found was Mark Bolan, and I made the first couple of records with him, which didn't make it, but then I got very lucky because another guy walked into my little office in London, and he said his name was Cat Stevens, and nobody wanted to know about him, nobody wanted to sign him. He played me a couple of his songs. I just said, you're fantastic, I'll do it. And that was it. You see, you have to have something that kicks you off, and he certainly kicked me off as a producer.
And If we jump forward to 1999, you entered the Guinness Book of Records for stage production. How come about?
That's quite funny, actually.
Yeah.
My mother had a theatre group, which is where I started. When she died, I took it over. One of my daughters subsequently took it over from me and still runs it. I have yet two other daughters who do the same thing with theatre groups in different parts of the country. And I have a son who does theatre groups in your part of the country, in Harpenden. And so it seemed like a logical thing to do for me to write their pantomimes and their musicals for them, because I love writing. So I did that. But in 1999, one of my granddaughters said to me, why can't we get a Guinness World Record for the whole family doing a pantomime? So I laughed. I said, you've got to be kidding. I'm sure they don't do that. She said, oh, yeah, they do everything. So I rang them up and I said, is there a category for the largest family member acted show or pantomime or whatever in the world? And funnily enough, they said yes.
Wow.
And they said the record stood since 1906. So I said, well, how many was that? And they said 19 family members. And I said, I can beat that. And we did. We put Puss in Boots on at the Kenton Theatre in Henley-on-Thames, and there were 24 of my family, grandchildren, even little baby in arms and everything else. And we put the show on, and we got the Guinness World Record.
Gosh, you certainly pick up the milestones, don't you, Mike?
It's quite funny.
It's because, another string to your bow, because there are so many. And you started to do lectures.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of those at the moment. Yes, I did. And you would ask me, wouldn't you, Sylvia, why did you do that?
I would. That's my next question.
The same thing applies to becoming a record producer. You see, because you do a lot of music shows.
Yeah.
You're past your sell-by date at a certain point in the record business. People are deeply suspicious of you if you're possibly over the age of 30. And I was certainly over the age of 30. And they tend to sort of then ignore you. So what I did was I sat down and researched a book. And I wrote a book called Every Song Tells a Story about the history of popular music from the 13th century until now. And that led me into thinking, I can go talk at schools. So I started putting feelers out, and I do 50, 60 schools a year.
Wow, gosh, that is popular.
And it's fun. I do it just me and a guitar, and I talk to them and I play them sort of styles of music, from folk music right the way through to the 20th century and now.
Wow, I'd love to see that. Yeah. So what would you say is a time in your career that would become a real memorable moment to you?
Well, a couple that stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
One was the Springfields, of course, having that hit, Silver Threads and Golden Needles, because there was I, a 19-year-old kid, and suddenly I was in America, and suddenly I was ordering breakfast in America, which is the old song.
Yeah.
But, it was just fantastic. So that was a memorable one. And the next one was Cat Stevens, because we did I Love My Dog, the first single, and that made it to 23 in the charts. And then we had the second record, Matthew and Son. And the people in the radio stations, BBC, the pirate stations, they all told me it wasn't anywhere near as good as I Love My Dog, and it wasn't going to happen, and they didn't think they could play it. And I persuaded a couple of the pirates to play it for a week. And that went to number 2. So I was right. And that was the biggest thrill of my life, seeing the first big hit record I produced.
God, that must have been something.
Yeah,
you must have felt you was floating. It was, And is there an artist that you feel has inspired you, one you've worked with?
Oh, yeah, no, I haven't worked with him, but my inspiration as a record producer was Brian Wilson, Beach Boys.
Oh, really?
Because, when I first heard Pet Sounds, the album in 1967,
yeah,
I just fell apart at the seams. To me, it was, and still is, one of the best produced records, albums ever made, apart from Sgt. Pepper. It's Sgt. Pepper and it's Pet Sounds. And I just love what Brian Wilson did. did, and I was just knocked out. And that inspired me to to keep being a record producer more than anything else.
Well, because you've got your album that's going to be released on October the 14th. Producers.
Today is record companies that you're involved with, and I'm involved with Angel Air Records, who've been great for me. They put a lot of albums out for me. And, it was Peter Purnell at Angel Air Records who suggested to me I dig out lots of stuff that I made that didn't make it in many respects, but nonetheless, some of them are good records. And so I started doing that, Volume 1, then it went to Volume 2, Volume 3, Volume 4. And, if you think about it, there are 80 tracks on those 4 albums, and none of them include my hits, which I had, as you said earlier, with Manfred, Spencer Davis, The Move, Cat Stevens, Shawaddy Waddy, Shake. None of them include that. So it's just I looked at it and thought to myself, my God, how many records have you made in your life? A lot.
Yeah. So that's going to be available as from the 14th of October. And
it's got some well-known names on it. I mean, of course, it's got Billy Fury, New World, who I did have 4 big hits with, The Bachelors, which people, Russ Abbott. I got all sorts of people on there, actually, so it's an eclectic mix.
It is, and it's things that people haven't heard that they really should hear, shouldn't they?
Well, I mean, I just think it's interesting for them what likes the old stuff and like the obscure stuff, because, I mean, the lead track, Wild Thing, by a group called Fancy, I put together in the 1970s, I mean, that's another one of those records. That didn't do anything here. But we ended up with a gold record in the USA.
It is. And if you take yourself back to the days when you worked in the studio, is there anything that really stands out in your mind?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
A funny moment or...
one with Henry Mancini. Do you remember Henry Mancini?
No.
Well, he wrote the Pink Panther theme. Dum dum.
Oh, I remember that.
And loads of other film music and everything. I mean, he's dead, dear Mancini, but he and I were friends, and we were in the same recording studios in London, and he was doing another Pink Panther theme in the main studio with about 40 musicians for a film soundtrack, and I was in another studio with a group. And as you do when you're recording a rock group, or did in those days, and it's about 1 o'clock in the morning, you go sort of haywire. And we formed a conga line. I don't know why. And we congaed out of our studio. And we just congaed down the corridor straight into Studio 1. And there are 40 musicians in there, practically ready to do a take. And it was Henry Mancini's session. And we congaed through his studio. And lo and behold, the rest of the musicians in that studio got up and joined the conga line. And Henry Mancini came out of the control room and he said, "Mike Hurst." I said, "Yes, I'm sorry. I've taken your musicians away." And that always amused me. It was very funny.
I think you need to let off all that tension and energy from throughout the day, don't you?
It's always that way. If you've had peak volume going for about sort of 12 hours, you're not quite with it.
No. Oh, so talking of your album then, Mike, where can anybody get this from? You say Angel Air? Yeah,
it is. I mean, do Angel Air online. It's www.angelair.co.uk. You can order online. I mean, because it's great. It's hard copy. It's not download time, although I'm sure you can download something. It's hard copy. So, I mean, the record shops that still exist, and there aren't many, they may have it anyway.
Yeah, I'm downloading. It doesn't actually belong to you, does it, physically?
No.
And you don't get all the artistry and all the writing up on it as well, which I think is important.
No, you're right, you see, because I love all of that. I mean, I write all the sleeve notes for my stuff myself, because as my record company says to me, "You're very frank, Mike." And I am. I mean, I say what I feel and what I think. And sometimes that's me. And I mean, I like that imprint. It's fun.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's been, can you just tell us quickly, what have you got in the pipeline sort of for the next sort of forthcoming months? Lectures.
I did 2 in York yesterday and drove down last night. And I'm just lecturing all the way through to Christmas. And then, of course, don't laugh, it's the pantomime season. So I've got my pantos being put on in Harpenden, in Stamford, in Lincolnshire, in Henley-on-Thames. So I do the rounds. They're all run by my kids. And so I go along and I play guitar sometimes in the pit. And yeah, it's great fun. So Christmas and January, for me, are pantomime months.
Oh, no, they're not. No.
Oh, yes, they are.
Oh,
very good.
Oh, thank you for speaking to me. It's been a real pleasure.
And likewise, thank you.
Thank you. Let me just turn this off, and then I'll get what you can do